Lauren, can you say something on the podcast?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Especially on a nice, warm, sunny evening. So I'm calling this meeting of the Danvers Accessibility Commission to order. For those of you who are new to us here, I am Christy Showman-Fair. I am the chair. We have some of our commission members here at the table, and Lauren Ferrari, who is joining us virtually today. We're going to have a very short meeting before we start the public comment, public forum section of tonight. And so our agenda was posted on Tuesday, and I'm going to work my way through it. But it's so first we have public comment, which is different than our public forum section. But it's brief questions or comments on subjects not otherwise listed on our agenda. Do we have anybody who has things that they want to share? There will be more time from the public forum side of things. So next on our agenda is reappointment updates. And I'm very happy to say that Lauren is willing to serve for additional time. Yes.
You just move that microphone in front of you.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
Yes. I wasn't even thinking. We don't usually sit up here. Like so official. Yes. So Lauren has agreed to continue with us, and do we have to bring it before select board to make it official, or
we can like at the beginning of the June meeting, maybe
Okay.
have like a clerk come in and do a reappointment thing.
Okay.
But I figured
Yes.
June.
And we do have applicants for our two open positions who are both here in the audience today. We have some meetings to finalize things, but I don't see any issues. So I can tentatively say I'm very excited that we'll have a full commission come June. Ooh, I got loud. Okay. I feel like I also need to let people know I'm having some speaking issues today, so if you hear things, that is what's happening. Next, we have our first report out from Human Rights and Inclusion Commission. Vaughn went to that meeting for us.
Yes, I was thrilled to be able to attend. Can you hear? No?
Okay.
Is this any better? A little bit better? If our folks in the back can hear that, I think if we can have some help, that would be great, so our audience can hear better. I'll try to speak a little louder. Yes, I did attend the HRIC meeting last week, just representing our commission, and was actually lucky enough to be there as Dee was stepping down and they were appointing their interim, I think it's president of their commission, I think they would call it. Chair, thank you. But there were just a couple of things that they mentioned that I just briefly mentioned to Christy. They're hosting a Pride event on June 1st, and they would be happy to have a representative from our commission or simply just some pamphlets there at their table if we would like to have that there. So that may be something we want to consider. I know some of us are out of town, so in terms of having a representative, that may not be possible, but we may have some pamphlets that we can present. And then we may know about this already, but the Pride flag raising on June 6th is at 5:30. And there's going to be a Race Amity Cultural Festival on July 13th at the Farmers Market lot, which I thought sounded really exciting, which I think is co-sponsored with Heathmere, just to promote friendship, and there's going to be music and dancing, and there's probably more details that I'm leaving out. But I was really pleased to attend.
Thank you very much. So this is, we're not officially, we don't officially have liaisons to other commissions, but we are trying to make sure that we are letting other organizations know that we exist and then doing information sharing. So thank you so much for going to that.
My pleasure.
Next, we have our DEI report out with Jasmine.
Thank you. And thank you, Fawn. I'm like, ooh, you did all the things I was going to say, so that's great.
I'm sorry, I figured there might be some overlap there, but I wasn't sure what to include.
I like your version. Your version's great. So Jasmine Ramon, she, her is the Director of Equity and Inclusion for the town. I wanted to just mark that the Equity and Inclusion Department turned 2 last month. I like marking this not to talk about how long I've been here, but really to just kind of use it as a metric for how much growth has happened in the community. And really, I think that recommissioning this group in particular has definitely been one of the staples and highlights that came out of that department. And so I commend the momentum in the community, really engaged in wanting to bring about positive cultural change for our community, and it's been wonderful collaborating and working in partnership with you all. And so I just wanted to highlight that because it's fun. I also just wanted to name, I don't know where the month of May went, but it was Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I just wanted to share internally for town hall employees, our employment engagement opportunity. We did an activity to kind of align the name and face of an Asian American Pacific Islander with their contributions to society. So we have, you might notice them in the hall, there's an astronaut, a civil rights activist, a disability justice advocate, a wrestler turned philanthropist. So just a fun, small activity to take a break from work, engage your brain, and raise awareness about different identities. The third piece I wanted to share was our commission has been asking about other commissions on disability and wanting to get more information about how other commissions function across really the state. And so to that end, we put out a survey to different groups. We were fortunate to have about 22 responses, and based on the information from up to that point, I put together a report with some of the findings, asking about things like budget and commission size and mission statement and things like that. So I then passed on that report to our commission to make sure I asked the right questions, that the information was organized in a way that was digestible for an audience. And I got some feedback, made those changes, and now I'm going to be sending it out to everyone who indicated they would like that information. So thank you all for the review and the notes. And I would like for it to exist moving forward on kind of a rolling basis, because 22 out of 300 plus municipalities leaves a lot to be desired. But having this as a starting point, I'm hoping will support our commission in whatever future direction we choose to move. The other piece I have our little show and tell up front, but the town hall, we've created our first ever adaptive toolkit, which I would describe as a collection of items to support the inclusion of people across a variety of motor functions, cognitive functions, and behaviors in any given environment. And this really was an idea that came from Northeast ARC, actually, one of yours, amazing group, who actually gave the first one of its kind to the library, and I was like, I want one, and I'm going to make one. So we do have it up front if people are interested in poking around in there. Currently, we have noise-canceling headphones, a visual timer, different fidgets, different types of grips, a slant board, and a page magnifier. I am open to recommendations about additional items, and I'm trying to create a sign-out sheet so that this can be used particularly for my town hall employees in their different committee and board meetings or any events that they might want to put on. They can sign it out, bring it back, and as you can see, we left space to grow in it. So I'm hoping to find more stuff to put in there. The last bit was just upcoming events. Fawn, you did great. We have Pride coming up, the flag raising, and the party are on Saturday, June 1st. That same week, or later on that week, Thursday, June 6th, the police department's raising their flag. We have Juneteenth also coming up on Monday, June 17th from 2 to 3 in front of Town Hall. And we're going to have the North Shore Juneteenth Association come over and do a ceremony and a program for us. And then lastly, the Race Amity Multicultural Festival will be on July 13th. They call it the Elm Street parking lot. It's on the flyer. I've described it in a million different ways, but I think
It's where the
people-
farmer's market used to be.
Yeah, you can't miss it.
Not too long ago.
The plan is for it to be hyper visible. And that's just, we're working with Heathmere Center for Cultural Engagement, and Race Amity simply just means friendship. So it's a day to celebrate cross-racial friendship, community across difference, kindness, all of the things that I'm sure we can agree we could use more of in this world. So we have a packed spring, summer. And these events, you'll see them on the town website. So don't worry if you didn't write down all the dates and times. They'll be in the minutes. They'll be on social media. They'll be on flyers around the building. So, and also if you have any questions because you can't find them, feel free to reach out to me directly.
Thank you very much. No, it was perfect. So it's actually it's kind of a segue from what Jasmine was talking about with regard to the survey. One of the things that many things we've wanted to do, in addition to kind of programmatic or educational type of work, is work that extends accessibility in various areas of the community. And I'm really, really happy to say that the school department has already started working on that. And they have the Bubble Day happening at Thorpe Elementary School on June 9th in the daytime.
10 to 12.
10 to 12, thank you. But it is an unveiling of a new communication board at the playground, and also a fundraiser for more communication boards around at the other playgrounds around the community. And this is actually something that I can take no credit for at all, but I'm very excited because I was in Lowell, and all of their public pools are getting communication boards, and they used their disability commission funding to do that. And so I'm looking to other communities to see the types of things that they're doing, what we could do with funding, and what I hope that we can do with some sort of future funding. So Bubble Day, June 9th, 10 to 12. It's also going to be an inclusive activity experience for families, very sensory friendly for those of our kiddos who need that. So please attend. It should be great. And the last thing on our agenda is new business. Do anybody on the commission have new business to bring forward for this evening? No? Okay, then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
I saw it. Okay. Okay, so we are adjourned, which means we're moving to the public forum. For those of you who were here with us in April, you know that this is a very new thing. And so I appreciate any and all participation in this. We are trying a variety of ways to get information from the community about the disability experience so that we can better advocate for people within Danvers. And so Jasmine is going to be our moderator. We have a small panel of those of us who are going to be sharing, but then we also want people in the audience to share. A reminder that we are live and recording. So if you want to share but don't want to be on camera, we can figure that out for you. If you want to share and don't mind being on camera, then the podium in the back is the best place for that because it's set up for DCAT. It has a mic and you will be on screen. So I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna first maybe ask our commission members who are not our panelists to feel free to take a seat in the audience. You're off the hook for the evening. And I'm wondering if maybe I should take Fawn's seat in between you two for the cameras.
Yeah, that would work. Oh, Fawn, the keys. Oh,
Yeah.
Probably figure it out when you watch the car.
on those. Thank you.
Hey.
I haven't seen it better. All right, so again, good evening, everyone. Just to reiterate that we've transitioned out of our public meeting, and so even though this seems very formal, we're hoping that once we get through our questions, that this can turn into perhaps even a conversation. So don't let the layout fool you or intimidate you. And so again, we've welcomed you to the space. I just wanted to lead with some intentions, some community agreements for how we want to navigate this shared space together. And so first, we're hoping in this time together, we can lead with empathy and curiosity. We ask that you take care of yourself. We ask that you potentially expect discomfort but pursue bravery. That you meet people where they're at, and perhaps most importantly, that you expect unfinished business. The purpose of this public forum is to really center the experiences of people within Danvers and people who are living with disabilities within Danvers. And so that's the main thing to note, that that's who we're here for. I believe we're good tech-wise. Lauren, if you have any issues, just flag us down and we'll go from there. And again, just a reminder as well that if you do not feel comfortable getting up and speaking in public, or if the fact that we're live and being recorded doesn't work for you, but you still would like to share your story, we do have an alternative survey that I'm happy to provide after. That you can write down your story a little bit, if you will. You're also always welcome to reach out to me or Christy to sit down with us for a cup of coffee or wherever in a location that's comfortable for you, just to learn more about you and think about how our community can better serve you. So with all of that said, these two panelists should be very familiar to you all, but I'm going to give them the space to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their backgrounds.
I will let JD start. Since
Okay.
I've been doing a lot of talking already.
Sure. My name's JD Martz. I've been a Danvers resident for maybe 5 years now. Does that sound right? But I grew up on the North Shore. But I became really interested in assisting in the disability community about, how long have we been around for now? Like a year? A year.
Mm-hmm.
Just after kind of like doing a little perusing and seeing that the commission didn't really exist at the time. I'm a quadriplegic, so I drive this chair with my head because I really only have shoulder movement. So it provides some unique mobility challenges. And also at the same time, I have an acquired disability. Like I had a spinal cord injury and it was 7 years ago. So I feel like someone who is born with a disability will have a much different perspective than me, So, I know we all are gonna have very differing perspectives, but I just wanna preface by saying this is my personal experience only. But yeah, so Danvers in general for me, I've loved it. I've loved the small town kind of feel of it and the way that allows us to have something like the rail trail, which is probably one of my favorite accessible, trails and ways to get around town. And it's nice, you get to see all kinds of things. It's well kept. It's really easy for me to drive on with my head because, we live in New England. It's, we deal with frost heaves. We've got old roads. So there's a lot of issues that come with our existing infrastructure. But something like that is just a nice reprieve that I know is always going to be easy for me to get around on, versus the sidewalks, which we have, tree roots growing up through, all kinds of weird stuff on there, people parking on them, who knows. And then the streets themselves, are actually pretty good for the most part. I've found in a lot of areas. So I end up actually driving on the street a lot rather than the sidewalk. And I notice generally I get treated pretty well as far as people like slowing down and being cautious around me, which I appreciate. I'm not like looking for them to necessarily slow down to a crawl or anything. Some people can be a little dramatic about it, but it's nice to know that I'm seen. And then, you know, there's obviously like coming into an older town like this, there's going to be a lot of things that my disability and the way I get around aren't going to really gel together. So, you know, for example, like yesterday, I went to go to Curran's to get some flowers for my wife, and I realized I couldn't get into the shop at all. I could get into around the side to where like the greenhouse was, but I wanted like a bouquet. So I kind of had to send someone in for me, and there was like no overhang, and it was like 80 some degrees. So I was kind of just like cooking out front, like waiting for that to happen. So you kind of like run into some things here and there, but you see that they're trying, and there's a lot of new infrastructure that's coming in that's really helpful. Like how we're talking about the putting a crosswalk at the rail trail near the gas stations. And some of just like the new curb cut we did over by the fish market and stuff like that. You know, it's like I feel like as far as interacting with the people around town, it's been pretty excellent, you know, especially with DPW, my interactions with them. People in general have been really understanding. You know, it's not like I get honked at when it's taking me a while to cross the road, because, you know, the head array can be kind of finicky. You know, I hit a brick or something, my head pops off, it stops. So I have to like restart, it takes a second. You know, it can get a little annoying if you're waiting for me to cross the street or something. But for the most part, I mean, I still feel like I'm exploring Danvers and still kind of learning some things. And I know I don't know everything, and I would love to learn from other people who maybe have like similar situations and have like better ideas about certain things, because kind of a lot of things I come up with or come across are like, you know, pretty much baked inside my own brain. I don't like have necessarily a community of like people in very similar situations that I can kind of like chat with about it that live in this town at least. So, you know, part of one of my hopes of this forum was to kind of just get the ball rolling as far as getting the word out there that this exists, getting other people to, want to be involved and everything, and just so I can kind of have that dialogue with them. But as far as anything else, I'm not sure what I want to.
That's a good place to stop, I think.
Okay.
Don't worry, I have more questions for you.
Beautiful.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As you know, my name is Christy. My pronouns are she, her. I have to say that I feel more uncomfortable being part of the panel than I do running a meeting. So when you look at me, I don't look like I have a disability. So did anybody come in through the front door this morning? Everybody also, I was in the car for 6 hours today. So I was in Northampton teaching. But so the front door has an orange ribbon on it that says, "Do you know what Ehlers-Danlos is?" I literally stop in my tracks because that is the disorder that I have. And I did not put the ribbon on the door. So it's just perfect time. And it actually is Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month. So it is, Ehlers-Danlos is a group of connective tissue disorders, genetic connective tissue disorders, that manifest in a variety of ways. Because it's genetic, I've had it my entire life, but it's only been in the last few years that I realized that the things that I've been dealing with sometimes I have a disability. Today, I have connective tissue in my mouth that is degenerating, and it's making it very hard to talk. Some days I have to use a cane in order to get around. And the thing that's, I think, most challenging from a disability identity standpoint is that I constantly have to redefine what it means for me. And I constantly have to advocate or redefine what it means for other people when they see me. Because when they see me walking around fine, I look like I don't have a disability. But I have chronic migraines. I'm in pain all the time. I have a torn labrum in my hip that will never heal. I have back pain all the time. And I do very frequently use my cane. And people just don't always see that. And so it's kind of I don't know, it feels complicated, but then it also feels like I'm cheating sometimes. Like the days that I'm feeling well, I'm like, oh, I can go do things. This is great. And then I have 2 days or 3 days where I'm not well. And so I know that we have other questions, so I will save them for the other parts.
Yes, so I do have a couple questions prepared for them, and then after that, we're gonna turn it over to the audience, and again, hopefully more of a dialogue. I'm gonna change the order, so in
That's
case
fine.
you were studying notes
Nope.
beforehand, keep you on your toes. So the first question I want to ask both of you is, what are the biggest obstacles you face in your day-to-day life?
I can start. So for me, it's really just mobility and balance. So, I rely heavily on a lot of people to kind of get me up and ready for the day. And then even once I'm like fully ready and I feel all set in my chair, the second I hit an uneven surface, that could be fine, or it could be like, I'm over here and then I need someone to kind of shift me over. And that's probably the biggest thing because, I also have a really strong tone and spasticity in my body. So like I'm a total like slave to the weather, so like when the weather comes in and changes, like I get incredibly stiff or I'll end up spasming. Like I might end up having it happen at this meeting. And that can throw me out of position, and like I can almost feel it like a volcano getting ready to erupt. Like I'll feel that and I'll see a bump in the road and I'll be like, crap. If I hit that, I'm gonna go nuts right now, and it's like, that could be, since I drive with my head, I could spasm and push into that and like end up driving off the curb into traffic or something, and luckily there's a shut off button right here, so I try to hope that I spasm in this direction, but that's not always the case. And then I think just as far as, I don't know, I guess that's all I have to say for now, but.
I think it's very interesting. The thing that I was thinking was actually muscle spasms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the, 'cause connective tissue is everything. It's the glue that holds our bodies together. And I like to describe mine as like, when you found a rubber band in the back of the drawer and it's like brittle, that's what my connective tissue is like. And the connective tissue in my muscles sometimes get a little confused in my nerves. And I get muscle spasms. Most of them are in my hands. And so things like doing the dishes can be really challenging. Sometimes writing can be challenging. My hands will get stuck in certain positions. But I actually also get really chronic muscle spasms in my feet and in my abdomen. And so once in my feet, I can't drive. And it makes it very scary if it happens while I'm driving. And in my abdomen, it makes it hard to breathe. One time I was holding my son and I almost dropped him. He was a toddler. And so it's just, there's also uncertainty. I think it's like the thing, like with the weather, like the weather affects it, and but also whether or not I had sleep and how much water I've had, and I don't know what's going on and when it's going to happen. And so that, I could just be doing a thing, and all of a sudden, like I was actually having a conversation with my daughter right before this, and all of a sudden I just stopped because my mouth hurt so bad I couldn't speak, and I have it's like really swollen, and I'm like, I don't know why, it just is. So
Yeah, and I mean, New England, of all
Yeah, oh, yeah,
places, if
seriously.
you're at the mercy of the weather. So I commend you for navigating those changes. Today alone was like whiplash. So the next question I have for the both of you is more specifically connected to this building that we're in. What do you feel that you need from town employees, but also maybe citizens, particularly citizens perhaps who are able-bodied and neurotypical, to feel supported?
I mean, for me, obviously there's the entrance out back, which I utilize, into the vestibule, which has the elevator. And there's always the handicap button press you can press. But since I can't use my arms, I rely on someone to press that, or I'll try and figure out a way to kind of spin and hit it with one of my screens. But I feel like I'm in such a compromised mobility situation that I've kind of accepted the fact that I can't really go anywhere on my own. So I feel like I always have a little bit of a crutch with somebody with me. And it would be kind of wild if there was a day where I could just go out on my own. But I think I feel like that's probably impossible just with how weather and humanity and everything is. But I mean, for me, it's really just about keeping everything as flat as possible, really. But it's like I know that's not realistic, but it's like even a slanted walkway or a slanted parking lot where it's kind of like favoring one way or the other. I'm roasting my neck trying to keep it over there to drive and get up there, and it can wear me down, and then it can eventually trigger a spasm like that. And that was a minor one. But I think for the most part, like I was saying before, the rail trail is incredible. That's honestly my favorite feature in the town. We have some parks that actually are pretty accessible. I think just my biggest enemy is the one that's not going away. It's the weather and what the weather does to infrastructure and roads around here.
Yeah, totally hear that. I usually come in the front steps, and in the winter, the ice there is brutal. So I never intended to be on this panel, but logistics came to a point where we didn't have a lot of people who were available, and Jasmine kind of said, well, what about you? Oh. So I feel like what I want to bring to this conversation is a reminder that you never know what is happening in somebody's life, that the glance on the person on the outside doesn't tell you the whole story. It doesn't tell you what kind of obstacles that they have to overcome to be in the space that they're in at that moment. And so I always ask of other people is to have empathy and kind of understanding, and but also from a town perspective, the more that we can do to use universal design and for curb cuts help everybody. Having ramps and not just steps places helps everybody. So things like that, if you making sure that when we put things out that they're larger fonts in our emails, making sure that we're using microphones at every event, all these things that we may look at to be tools for accessibility help everybody. Having an event that is low on sensory demands helps everybody. So, as much as that we can do as a commission to encourage that within the town is kind of what I'm hoping for.
Thank you. The final prepared question I have for you all.
Sometimes they're unprepared questions.
Half question, would be, so specific to getting around the Danvers community, what do you think is the most important thing that you would like to share with tonight's audience and future viewers of this recording?
Oh, goodness.
See, that was originally the first question.
Wait, read it one more time.
What is the most important thing you would like to share with your audience? And yes, you did right.
For me, it's really just that I want people to feel really comfortable coming up to me and ask me questions and talking to me, because other than that, it's just going to remain a mystery. What if I need something, if I don't need something, if you can learn something from me, if I can learn something from you, none of that's going to happen unless we talk to each other or have some form of dialogue or communication. And it would be really nice to have some almost like town-wide recognized way for us to communicate or something. A code or like some kind of forum like this, or one that's not designated to a set time or location necessarily. But yeah.
I think, like, with my accessibility chair hat on, the most important thing is that this commission exists, and we exist entirely to support the experiences of the Danvers community, to access all the services, all the recreation, all the experiences that our community has to offer. So going, we started with and do focus on the disability community, but in general, like thinking about access in all ways. And so, that we exist.
Thank you. I would just insert slightly on wearing my hat as director. The most important thing I want the audience to know as well is to bring these stories forward. There are so many people in our community with different abilities. When I finally get to speak to them on the phone, they have been sent around to every person that you can think of. They've been sent to the neighbor, local, state level. And so I understand by the time they get to me, they're exhausted. And I understand the toll it takes being one more person to tell that story to. And the more stories that I can bring together, the more voices I have to then move forward in spaces where I can advocate. And it's not just me saying, well, one person told me. It's over the course of the last 6 months, I have heard from a variety of people about this. What opportunities are we creating to elevate these voices even further? So I'm hopeful that this also will leave people feeling more courageous or finding that that little ounce of reserved energy to really identify me as someone in the community to bring these stories to, so I can figure out how to bring the resources to you or to figure out who needs to be in the room together to get you what you need. So, but not to end on my word, the last half question I have for you both is if there's just anything that you want to add before we open it up.
I think it's pretty much the same thing. For me, like the biggest thing for me is really just communication amongst the community. Like I want to feel like we have a line to each other, that we can talk, that we can discuss, that we can grow and evolve this thing. Because if it stays smaller, like people don't know about it, it becomes an echo chamber, and I myself, like I struggle because I have an acquired disability with imposter syndrome. And it's like, it's wild, you look at me, it's like, how can that guy be an imposter? But at the same time, like I was 28 when I got injured. So I lived like a pretty nice life, like, well-rounded life up till that point. So I almost have like this split in the middle. So sometimes I feel like I'm not as much of an expert on myself as I claim to be, but I don't know if that's just the imposter syndrome speaking, or that I just need to, it basically just drives me to want to have more conversations with more people in the community to kind of know that there are other people with similar situations, but also that there's these wildly different things that I can't even conceive of, but that can be helped because, I want to be inspired by other people in the community to help them. It's tough when you're just like, well, what do I need? What do I need? And I don't want to be like that. But I know there's certain things that I need that will benefit other people. So, I'll champion that.
So I want to thank you both so much for your vulnerability and for really modeling the community agreements that we put forward for this evening. I know that I've been fortunate to be gifted with your stories on an individual level, and I know that this is different, so I thank you for that. And I want to affirm, especially for you, JD, that one thing that you are an expert on is your own experience, and that's true for each and every one of us. And so if there's anything, as a fellow person impacted with imposter syndrome for my own reasons, right, I want to really affirm that, and that expertise is what is needed for positions like mine to create better communities. So thank you both for
I
that.
do have one more thing to add for the people who are in the audience, but also anybody who's watching this recording later. We do want more voices, and so we have talked about the possibility of like asking if we can have DCAT record people's voices, their stories, or if you want to just send them to us. We really do want to hear from the wide variety, because every disability experience is an individual experience, and yeah, I hear the imposter syndrome too. I get it. So we really do want to hear from people. So please share. JD is a fantastic DCAT star. So we have a couple videos out already that can be shared. And then if you see this one posted on YouTube on the DCAT channel, please share and let people know that we want to hear from them.
And comment too. You can
Yes.
totally comment on the
Yeah.
video. We can find you that way. I'll hunt you down.
Amazing. Okay, so now for real, we would like to turn it over to you as the audience. If you are able and you would like to get up and share your story or comments, we have a podium in the back. We also can figure out how to bring a mic to you if we need to, but we really would love to hear from more voices.
Thank you.
I can start the roll. I can start us going.
Yes.
Everyone jump at once. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if this is on or.
Yes.
It should be,
Okay, good.
yes.
So I'm Jenny Corsino. I've lived in Danvers my entire life. Well, I grew up in Danvers, I should say. Took a hiatus and now came back. My husband, my son, and myself moved back to Danvers about 10 years ago, and my son has ASD, congenital glaucoma, and a few other, acronyms out there, but those are the two main disabilities that he currently has today, or are known as disabilities, but I just like to put so that people can understand who he is. He's 7 years old and just started going to Danvers school system. We've been working with the school system now for, since September, and they've been amazing. It's been night and day for me, considering I had such a wonderful time at the Center for Autism, but it's been very different and challenging at times as well. As far as what can the town do for me, when I think of that question that you had asked, both JD and Christy, I wrote it down because I'm thinking to myself, what can this town do? I mean, what can we do? It really does boil down, for me personally, education. I mean, in finding any single opportunity you can think to find a way to educate, because like Christy said, there are probably more invisible than visible disabilities out there, because I think even if they are visible, people can potentially mask them, if they can. And I think a lot of people just, and compassion, sharing the fact that we're all human, and just compassion, be compassionate. And one of the things that I wrote down that I can think of, even when I was a kid, like I was just thinking my dad's station wagon driving down High Street right before Elm, and we have that banner that's always there. I always, even as a kid, was like, ooh, what's happening this month? I don't know if it's just me and I'm just out in La La Land half the time, but I don't think I've ever seen anything on, certain things that we could promote disabilities or certain months that we celebrate. I mean, Autism Month is huge in so many different ways in so many other communities, and I see it out there so much more everywhere else. And I always say, well, why can't we do this? Like, why can't our town do this? I mean, we might be smaller than that, but it doesn't take many resources. It doesn't even take a lot of financial resources, so if any at all. So that I guess was, just can we think about how we can just educate our own people so that it can kind of just ripple effect itself. And I think just like this commission in and of itself, I think is probably the best way to get that, out there. So I appreciate you guys and your volunteer time, and just the town in general to put this together and give us this forum to even have a conversation about these things that are sometimes hard to have a conversation about, but also just allowing people to feel like they can talk about it is also pretty big, because You can't go out there and get a list of people that have a disability and offer them, hey, here's this form. So, being a part of, the Danvers CPAC, we don't have a list of students, so we have to reach out to everybody and hope that they'll join. And probably even half of those that could utilize having a conversation with us don't even understand what CPAC means, special education Parent Advisory Council, if anybody in here doesn't know, because I didn't know, and I needed their service, and now here I am. So that education is huge, and at your last form that you guys had just moved me so much with how vulnerable those children were, and I'm like, I want to be in that era. I want to be in that world, and I say that about my son every single day. I want to be in his world. So those were some of the things that I see is, compassion, having more vision. Like Bubble Day is one of the things that I was so excited to hear when I came in at the last minute. And, Rebecca Can coming up with that idea, and, Eric Oxford and the Danvers Rec and everybody that's putting it together, and I'm helping with CPAC as much as we can to help them put that together. Like, we're so excited for that, because it's not just going to help the children, but it's also going to help the community. Be like, what is that? What is that used for? And people are going to ask. They're going to say, what is that? It's awareness. So never mind just it's awareness on top of universal need for communication. So those are some things that I'm excited to see starting to happen. I just wish we could see a little bit more of it. But I think it also goes down to, well, what comes first? So I think taking this time to hear the bigger needs and then prioritize them, I know that that's what we're doing. And so that's kind of why I came, is to kind of just share my experience, my thoughts. And then I do love the whole DCAT famous JD over here. I'm actually kind of excited about now knowing about it, because I think one of the ideas that I had, and I'm sorry for talking so long, but was everyone's always like, your son, he's so cute, he's so cute, he's so cute. But a lot of people don't. He is cute, but if he's going to do what he's doing right now at 7, in 5 or so years, it's not going to be cute. But he does not have the cognitive understanding to know that in 5 years. So even now at 7, he's doing some things he probably shouldn't be doing, but it's cute, he'll get there, it's fine. No, it's not fine, because he does not have the understanding. So, there are certain things, and so I think just doing something, making, Lucas, a mini JD, for ASD, like, he's so cute. Yeah, he is adorable, and he does do cute things, but just so that people can understand, like, what does autism look like for my son? Because it's different for everybody, and he loves to be in front of the camera.
We should make it happen.
He's a ham.
Protege.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm so glad that even if I just came tonight and like that's my big takeaway, I was like, I'm going to look into that. And then maybe, because I know he would love to just go out there and just show the world who he is, because that's literally who he is. So I'm going to look into that, and that's my big takeaway for today. And thank you for this platform to share my experience as a mom. And I do also, working on my own invisible diagnosis as I speak as well. I can understand everything as well. And the weather in New England is awful because of all of that too. So thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.
Coming. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that gives me a little bit of an idea too, because they are looking for some programming on DCAT as well. So we could have little features. I don't know if it has to be a regular thing or something we just do little ones here and there, where we could do maybe sort of little interviews, or I don't know. It's something we would have to workshop the format of, and something that would probably evolve and morph with whoever the guest would be. So I don't know, but that's got the gears turning for me.
I do want to elevate, like, DCAT has been an incredible
Yes, thank you guys.
partner. Yep,
to hear
even
us.
since I've arrived, just their ability to share the stories, get the information out, raise awareness. They will come to you. You can go to them, whether it's a Danvers Daily promoting an event, or it's some obscure project that you want to think up on the side. They're always willing, and I think we're very fortunate for that. So Danvers Cable Access Television, right down the street. Y'all are the best.
my name is Karen Craig. I'm actually new to Danvers. My husband grew up here, and we just recently bought his parents' house. I grew up in Saugus. I have Usher syndrome, which is a progressive vision loss for me by way of my periphery. So talking about kind of being an imposter, I lived as one for a while because it took me a long time to embrace using a cane. Because my vision is progressive, I've always had some field of vision to the side, and your brain does a lot to make you think you have more vision than you do. But I also am hearing impaired. I wear hearing aids, and it is nearly fully correctable, but it is not. So before I was diagnosed, which wasn't until I was 26 years old, I was a mom and have all adult children at this point. But I'm just excited that there is this desire for people of Danvers to know that people like us might need something more, and that people are willing to ask us what we need. But I'm not exactly sure where that is right now for me. Like, this is only my second time, I think, in this building at all. And my husband, having grown up here, he's just sort of the tour guide. Take a right, do this, do that. But that said, I don't know how well it was signed for me to see if he was not with me. A lot of people think that if you're blind, then you use Braille. And that's not the case. There's such a spectrum when it comes to just every disability, really, but for blindness as well. People think, oh, she must see in the dark, like, it's all black. That's only a very small percentage of people. But the other thing is a lot of people don't know how to figure out who I am and what I need because of my age. I mean, I'm older now, but I've had this known about this since I was 26. So I'm now in my early 50s, and now my vision is about half as much as it was then. And my vision will continue to close in. But I do agree with the rail trail. That is fantastic way to get around, very easy, maneuverable. My big thing, though, I would say is, and I'm not sure that it's like here per se, is crosswalks. The other thing is there are very few, if any, audible crosswalks. I live just on the end of 62 down by the animal hospital. So I live in a very closed off, safe neighborhood where I can walk in the street and whatnot, but that's all I really can walk. The other place I do go frequently is Endicott Park, but that is a very dangerous place for pedestrians to enter into because cars are constantly coming in and out, and then people are not respectful of speed limits. And that is, that's the case on any road, really, but it's harder when it's on a dirt road for me to know and to keep my visual sort of guideline of to not walk myself into the street, so to speak. But so those would be two things, but I am really excited that something like this is here in the town. And I only would have known about it, the only way I do know about it is because I follow Facebook and the Danvers Moms, and I think it was you,
Yeah.
Christy. So I think, honestly, that it just needs to get out more and more. And maybe, I know I saw, is it JD? Because,
Yeah.
okay. I saw a little snippet, a video clip of you.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, it's almost like I wonder if we could do something like we were saying, somebody else was saying, but sort of the faces of Danvers you don't necessarily know.
I love that.
Who your neighbors are, because the more awareness you give them, like my favorite thing is if somebody comes up and asks me, you know, oh, I noticed that you have your cane, but, you know, do you mind explaining? I don't find that offensive. And my big thing is to educate children, because they need to know. And I have such a range of people's reaction to seeing my cane. They will like part the waters like the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Or some people will ask. And honestly, if we don't educate, how are people going to understand and be sensitive to our needs? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You may have seen, or actually some people may have noticed and heard comments. So JD actually kind of initiated us nudging the planning department to apply for a grant to try to get audible crossing walks downtown. It's a process.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's taking time, but I think at the very least, the town departments that are involved know, and they know it's a need. And so that I hope is coming. We're kind of nudging them more, but and then there's something. Oh, I've been taking notes. So and we'll be happy to kind of reach out to some of the departments for specific things. So I really appreciate the note about Endicott Park too, because I have noticed that in times that my daughter, who uses a wheelchair sometimes, has had, like, we couldn't ever walk there. We have to like drive and then in park. But I appreciate that, and thank you so much. And I'm very excited the potential to have you here on our commission.
Yeah, I'm gonna also echo the Endicott Park, because I've driven in my chair in and out of there, and I'm like, I'm a little worried, like who's gonna whip around the corner right now?
In park.
And honestly, that could be something as
appreciate that, and
simple
thank you so much,
as,
and
you know, just like a little walkway that runs along that main entrance one, because Endicott Park is so beautiful, and I love cruising around there, seeing the animals, and it is pretty easy for me to get around there. But it, like, really just that one crosswalk on the way in, or not a crosswalk, like a walkway on the way in that's kind of like separate from the cars, and the cars will line up to pay or not pay, and and you know, you'll go around and, but
It's hard when they have like the programs, because those are the parents dropping off like the summertime.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Parents dropping off their kids for summer program, and they're just not
yeah, it's like a meat grinder.
aware.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like to some extent, there shouldn't be such a giant, difficult process to make a change there. And I know that the rec department is very open to listening, so we'll start that conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Amy Velasquez. I sit at the cross-section of disability in a lot of different ways. Personally, I can relate to a lot of the stories in the room. As a parent, I can relate to a lot of stories in the room. And I think just listening to the conversation, things that I'm excited about hearing about is, you know, those snippets, maybe those, you know, profiles or something. It's really important when I think about disability and I think about the town. It's a big piece of centering the narrative for me. That's really, really important. And as the parent of disabled children, you know, there was a place in my life where I was their voice and I spoke for them. But there's also a really important place, and especially when we think about children, about centering the narrative on the adults, because we're only children for a finite period of time. So that's one thing that I think about. Being sure that we center the narrative in lots of places, because the experience of disability is unique to each individual person, as other people have said. And the other thing that I think about, particularly with those invisible disabilities or even visible disabilities, I think the theme that's kind of showed up is living this space of curiosity versus judgment, right? And asking those curious questions. And I think, you know, thinking about my children's experiences in school or my own experiences growing up in Danvers, going through the schools, there wasn't a lot of curiosity, but there was a lot of judgment. And so I wonder about what we're doing and what we're modeling for the community. It's just like a question that I think about. I don't want to speak too much because I want to be sure that I just want to put space about that, centering that narrative, because I think it's really, really important. I'm really happy that this forum, exists to be able to allow for those spaces. So I don't want to take up too much, but
You can take up as much space as you need.
sure.
Would you be willing to just, if you can, clarify what you mean from your experience of centering, what would be an example of a
So when I mean centering the narrative, like I'll use an example of autistic people because that's a big space of my heart. I think it's important that we really listen to autistic people and really listen to what they're saying about their experiences as an example. So in centering that narrative, it's one thing to ask a so-called expert in a lab coat who went to school to learn about a certain thing to speak to something. It's a different thing to ask the person with that lived experience to speak to their lived experience. And so when I say centering the narrative, that's what I mean. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why we wanted these forums to exist. And okay. And I really appreciate and thank, especially those of you who were at the one about the disability in the schools. Everybody who spoke, who was a parent, was very good at centering their child's experience, which was the goal. And for those who weren't there, we did have 2 students there sharing their experiences as well. But yeah, I think it's super important. So thank you. I appreciate that. And I actually wrote down the live in the space of curiosity because I think that is, I feel like that's a call to action for our whole community. And maybe that could be kind of a thing somehow to be able to like pull that together. Yeah. Right?
It's also a paradigm shift.
Yes, yes.
Because like growing up, I was never allowed or encouraged to ask people who were atypical about their experience because it was rude.
Right.
But that's like, being married to someone with a disability, and I say one of my favorite
Can I
things-
interrupt you for a second? Can you go to the mic?
Sure.
Since just so that way, if people are watching the recording or watching it live, then they can hear you. And what you're saying is very important.
So, as the husband of someone with a disability, one of my favorite things to do when we're out together is people watch. And as Karen mentioned, the variety of reactions that people have. But the cool thing is kids are always curious, always curious. And they want to ask questions, but sometimes the parents prevent them. And that's unfortunate because that's a lost opportunity for both the kid and the parent to learn something. And I think as you said, focusing on curiosity is awesome because that's the only way we're going to learn about what each person's experience is. I guess that's about what I have to say.
Thank you. And thank you for getting to the mic. Because I do think that's really important, and I observed that a lot, less so for me, more so for my daughter, who did mention it at the forum, so I don't feel like I'm putting words in her mouth, but that we see when kids want to say something or ask a question, their parents shush them, and the message that they're sending is that the person with a disability is a taboo, and that they shouldn't be, you shouldn't pay attention to them. That's shameful or whatever, but that's the message that the kids are getting, rather than go say hi, go ahead and ask your question, and maybe remind them, be like, we want to make sure that we're polite and kind to people, but go ahead and ask your question because it's important to learn about people.
I've actually had that happen a few times in town where, my wife and I will be on a walk and, there'll be like a mother and her child kind of like on the other side of the street, and they'll be like, she'll be like, hey, do you mind if I ask you something so that my son can learn? I'm like, absolutely. I love hearing stuff like that. And people are always nervous, and that's fine. It's like we're all nervous, but I think the key is just being okay with asking that. Like I'll almost try to bait them a little bit by like saying hi, you know, like to just open up any kind of conversation or something like that. And or like if someone makes a comment like, oh, that's cool, like I'll maybe ask them what they thought was cool about it, or like, you know, say, hey, like, you know, just throw out a little fact too. But I think it's like, it's a little bit of that give and take where like I feel really intensely that I need to be an educator to some degree, otherwise people aren't going to learn. But at the same time, you know, you were talking before about like how there's doctors and their lab coats and everything, and how, but their opinion and what they know about us is, you ask them, it's going to be so different from what we say ourselves. You know, it's like we have the lived experience, we've had to learn, we've had to adapt. They go to school, they're working to help us in some way, but ultimately they're going to end up grouping a lot of us together and trying to create some sort of cure-all. But that's not really the situation. The situation is we're people, we're ourselves, we want to get by just like you, but we don't want to be treated as an other, you know, and only I can tell you about my experience, only you can tell me about your experience. And that's true whether or not you have a disability.
Very well said.
I got like that I like the twitch. I was like, I got to underscore. I really appreciate you all naming that. It's like, yes, ask me the questions. I also appreciate you elevating like that is your truth, and that then is not the expectation for every person who has a disability. Because, you know, as a woman of color, I'm familiar with the experience of speaking on behalf of an entire population, or being asked to do that. So I really appreciate how I'm hearing that balance of like, this is my truth and I'm advocating strongly for that. And I know that's not everyone's truth, and that's okay too. So I appreciate everyone who's shared to that end.
And we're all constantly still learning about our own disabilities too. I mean, like, you know, I obviously had thoughts before I was injured about what someone in a chair is like, and then after injury, even still then, it's like, oh, he looks like he's in a similar situation, let me ask him for a tip. And then when I start talking to him, like, oh crap, this guy's like totally different, like internally, what he's experiencing, he doesn't get affected by the weather, or he doesn't get nerve pain or something like that. And you're just like, oh wow, okay, it is like hyper individualized.
Anybody else?
Oh, please.
Yes. Yes, please. Yes, thank you.
So after listening to everybody, the one thing that I did want to just kind of mention is, if we all just kind of like looked around town and said, all right, where can I see an opportunity to say something? So for instance, Falcon Fest, that's pretty big. It used to be the Danvers Family Festival when I was growing up. I couldn't imagine not seeing every single person I knew at a place. And so I know recently I've reached out to them to ask how to start incorporating some more sensory-friendly opportunities, or how to, because even sensory-friendly opportunities might not just be for my son, might be for other people. So I know that was one thing that I personally had, you know, thought of, but there are so many things. The library does all those wonderful summer opportunities. It's packed every time I'm driving by and I forget, oh, I should draw. But those are so many different opportunities that we could just set something up and just share awareness. So that was just one of the comments I wanted to make of, where can we do this opportunity? So just kind of throwing that out there as I was sitting here thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm writing down.
Thank you. And I certainly do appreciate that from where I sit as well. As a department of one, the expectation of having eyes in a community that I don't live in, I really do rely on the community to tell me what you all need. It's not my job to tell you what's best for you. And I think like even if people are questioning, oh, well, what's the difference or what does the impact make? Just knowing JD, like the first thing that you put in my head when I first got here, every event was on the library lawn. And there were a lot of things I was questioning, but that was one thing at the time I was like, I don't have to question it. We're just going to keep these events happening. One conversation with JD about his experience trying to traverse that lawn. And I'm like, oh, no. We need to find alternative events. And who knows who's staying at home or not coming out as a result. And so I use that small anecdote to elevate just like the sheer impact of one conversation and the curiosity. And I think that's what goes a long way. A couple of conversations with everything that I've learned, even from this commission, and thinking about larger DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations that historically have still been erasing or underselling the challenges within access and accessibility. Having this group here and active and engaging really has expanded my mind to think about even the broader gaps of what is missing. So again, if you're thinking about impact, it's just one conversation and genuine relationships that can change your own worldview in a way that's real and maybe not performative or not checking a box. So I'm really excited by this. I think we all have this like shared motivation of curiosity. I want to name, especially at the town level, just thinking about how this is such a ripe time to be engaging with our community. We're wrapping up a strategic plan. The library just completed a strategic plan. We do, as Christy alluded to, there is a downtown revitalization plan that is in the works as well, that needs to have some of these different thoughts around access, and we're fortunate the departments internally are pulling us into that conversation. And so I want to name that, and especially hearing appetite for more events like this also is really motivating. I want to name as much as possible. Yes, you can volunteer your time by being part of a committee or a commission, but that's not the only way to be involved. You can reach out if you don't have capacity to sit on a board, but you're like, I have this event idea, or I would like to just volunteer my time for a day or for a DCAT initiative. Please, lean on me as a connector, and please share that with your neighbors as well. Again, I would just want to get the right people together in the room to see how far we can go. Accessibility Commission currently does not really have event planning as their one of their functions. We do still have a Human Rights and Inclusion Committee that does have some of that event planning a little bit, as well as my department can think about intentional ways of bringing that education to our community with your help. So I want to, as much as I can, underscore the power you have in this community. Really, you have more power than you might realize. So again, I thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We meet every fourth Thursday at 6 p.m. in this room. We do have a hybrid option available as well. That information lives on the town website, so you can go. The minutes are usually up, the agendas are up, so you can know if the meeting, sometimes they're shifted to solely virtual. All that information lives on our website, so it's there for you. If there's anything you can't find, or if you ever have feedback or anything of that nature, find me, Google me, call me, whatever you need, to make sure that we can see what can be done to get you what you all need. So again, I thank you for your presence, and I look forward to future forums just like this one, to start spreading awareness about the appetite and momentum we have in the community to better know our neighbors. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
There's one more thing I'd like to elevate. I know we kind of talked about education a lot, and I had mentioned this to Dan Bauer, and he kind of put me in touch with the principal at Holton Richmond. But I think if we can just mention and like talk about wanting maybe disability spokespeople to come into the schools to allow the children to ask questions and speak to them, like, I think that's a great idea. I've volunteered myself. I'm just, it's the end of the school year, so I haven't really gotten a lot of bites on that, but I would love to do that, to speak, and to just see that opportunity be kind of put out there, or either if it's not me, anybody, we could hunt someone down.
that gives us the summer to plan. So as we close out and we're getting ready to move, I encourage you to introduce yourself to a neighbor or someone that you don't know in the room. We also have a selectman in the room, former chair of Human Rights and Inclusion Committee as well. So if you want to connect with him as well, he's here too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for being here.